and welcome to another video to teach you about the wonderful world of Latin. Today's video will teach you about third declension I-stem nouns. And these are just a smaller group of nouns. They are just part of the third declension, which you've already learned. And they have the same gender options, masculine, feminine, neuter, number and case options as every other noun. And just like every other noun, the dictionary entry tells us the gender, and the endings tell us the number and case. You know their third declension because in the genitive singular, they will have that is, just like all your other third declension nouns. So that probably leads you to wonder, what is a third declension I-stem noun? Well, it's a smaller group of nouns within the third declension that uses a slightly different set of endings. So for masculine and feminine third declension I-stem nouns, the genitive plural will be an ium. And for neuter third declension I-stem nouns, the ablative singular will be an I instead of an E. And nominative and accusative plural will have an I, A before the A. And then genitive plural, just like the masculine and feminine, will be eum. So there's an I at the end of your stem for a few of your new endings. So it's just a smaller group of nouns. And they function totally like every other noun. So this video will introduce these endings to you and give you a bit of practice with them. The next question you're probably wondering about is, great, so they're third declension nouns, but how do you tell them apart from all the other third declension nouns? Well, there are some ways to do it. Some of it is just learning them by habit of what you've seen before. Other ways are these three rules. For masculine and feminine third declension nouns, if the nominative singular ends in an is or an es, like hostis or nubes, and the nominative singular and genitive singular forms have the same number of syllables, so hostis, nubes, have the same number of syllables as hostis and nubis, so they're I-stem nouns. Alternatively, a third declension noun could be I-stem if the nominative singular ends in an S or an X. So ars artis and urbs urbis. And then our neuter third declension I-stem nouns could have an AL like animal, animalis in the nominative singular, an AR like exemplar, exemplaris in the nominative singular, or an E like mare maris. So some of these you'll learn the rules for, some of them you'll just know they're third declension I-stem nouns based on reading a lot of Latin or memorizing that that noun's a third declension I-stem noun, but you'll have to figure out some way for yourself to make sure you know which are the third declension I-stem nouns. So let's look at their endings. And because just like third declension nouns, the masculine and feminine nouns are slightly different from your neuter ones, we'll do two sets of nouns. One group that's masculine and feminine, and one group that's neuter. As our first example, we'll take ratio rationis, which is feminine. So it will be our example for masculine and feminine nouns. As you see, this does not fit your rules for an I-stem noun. It doesn't end in an S or an X or is or ace, so this is just a normal third declension noun. You already know these endings, so decline ratio rationis and then advance the slide to your next slide to see if you got it right. You are right if you said it's ratio, rationis, rationi in the dative, rationem, ratione in the ablative, rationes in the nominative plural, rationum in the genitive plural, rationibus in the dative plural, rationes, and finally rationibus. So now that we've reviewed our third declension endings, let's look at a third declension masculine feminine I stem noun. So nubes, nubis, you know it's an I stem noun because that es in the nominative singular, and because nubes and nubis have the same number of syllables, and, well, because we tell you it's an I stem noun. So you can just know nubes, nubis, meaning cloud, is an I stem noun. And the only difference for your masculine feminine I stem third declension nouns from other third declension nouns is that the genitive plural will be an IUM instead of just UM. So nubes, nubis, nubi, nubem, nube, nubes, nubium, nubibus, nubes, nubibus. Once you've copied these down and made note that the genitive plural is the only form that changes for third declension I stem nouns for masculine and feminine compared to just your regular masculine and feminine nouns, advance to the next slide for neuter examples. Okay, our example nomen, nominis. You'll remember that this is not an I stem noun. You will also probably notice it doesn't end in that AL or AR or an E in the nominative singular, so it's a regular third declension noun. Decline this neuter noun and then continue the video to make sure you've reviewed these endings correctly. Okay, you're right. If you said it's nomen, nominis, nomini, nomen, because of our neuter rule that the nominative and accusative singular must be the same, nomine, nomina, nominum, nominibus, nomina, and nominibus. And once you've made sure that you have all of these forms correct, let's move on to our I stem noun example. And that example will be mare maris, that has that E in the nominative singular and is neuter, so you know it's an I stem noun. And for I stems, there are 4 differences for neuter nouns. The ablative singular is an I, so mari, so our singulars are mare, maris, marie, mare, marie. And then in the nominative plural, instead of just an A, it's IA, so that I is part of your stem. Marium, again, the I part of your stem before the UM. Maribus, Maria, with our neuter rule and our I stem rule, getting that I in there. And then maribus. Once you've copied all of these down, you can move on to the next slide to get a little bit more practice. And speaking of more practice, it's your turn to have some practice with the noun ars artis. So pause the video, decline ars artis as an I stem noun that you know is an I stem because it has that S at the end of your nominative singular, and then check your work. All right, you are correct if you said that ars artis, which is feminine, should be declined ars artis, arti, artem, arte, artes, artium, artibus, artes, artibus. And remember, because it's feminine, the only form that is different from your normal third declension endings is your genitive plural, which has that IUM in there, artium. Once you've checked these and made sure they're all correct, you can move on to your next example for practice. And that example is animal, animalis. So pause the video, decline this neuter noun, and then check your work. You are right if you said it is animal, animalis, animali, animal, animali, animalia, animalium, animalibus, animalia, animalibus. And make sure you have that I before your A in your nominative and accusative plural and the UM in your genitive plural, because this is your I stem neuter noun, and then your ablative singular should be an I ending because of it being a neuter I stem noun. Once you've checked these answers, you can move on to the next exercise. And that next exercise is to introduce one of the weirdest I stem nouns. These do not follow many of the patterns, but it is a tricky word, so you should just copy down all of these forms and really just memorize them because they're kind of weird. Wees is a feminine I stem noun that means force or strength or power, and its forms are like I stems. They're like third declension, but they don't really fit, partly because the entire base changes in the plural, and even some of the singular forms have a slightly different form than you'd expect for third declension or really even third declension I stems. So the forms are wees, wees, we, whim, we, and in the plural, weerace, wearium, wearibus, weerace, and wearibus. Once you've copied these down, you can move on to the next slide to check your understanding. And to check your understanding, I'd like you to parse these 5 I stem nouns. And yes, these are all I stem nouns. And then to translate this sentence that does include an I stem. And keep in mind that I stem nouns function exactly like all the other nouns. One thing to tell you before this video ends, right after this slide is a list of all of the third declension I stem nouns that are introduced in Wheelock Chapter 14. So it is a good reference for you to make sure you know all of the I stem nouns that you will be responsible for. If memorizing the rules or even just checking the rules may be a little bit more tricky for you, I just want to make sure you have a list of all of the nouns you are going to be expected to know are I stems.